Change begins from within. As easy as it is to look outside of ourselves and want the world to change, the truth is, it never will if we remain the same. This podcast was created for changemakers like you who want more love and connection in your community. Today, you are going to hear stories that will inspire you and also challenge you to be the change. We are going to go deep, my friend. So take a deep breath and settle in. My name is Leah Tamburini. Welcome to the Circle of Change. Welcome, friend. Spring is in the air. In the Northern Hemisphere, that is. And I don't know about you, but I can feel both the pain and the discomfort and the excitement of this birthing season. As we said last week, this is a time of letting go of what no longer serves us. And that doesn't always feel so good. So if you're feeling those feels, you're not alone. Just breathe into them and ask, what is taking up space in your heart? And that might give you the insight that you need to understand what is there for you to let go of. This is all part of the spring season. Today, I am so jazzed to be bringing you this circle conversation with Leah Lund. She is a spiritual force who will leave you feeling lighter with a fresh perspective on who we are as beings, what we're here to do, and how to do it in the most freeing and expansive way possible. This episode is pure love, and it's perfect for spring as we delve into many of the themes that will support you at this time of year. Go for a walk as you take in Leah's words and let nature enhance every morsel of this beautiful conversation. Here's a heads up at what you're going to hear. The guidance to listen to that will lead you to your biggest work yet. An enlightened way to conceptualize who we are as humans and the purpose of our life. What the winding journey of enlightenment really looks like. An expansive and attainable approach to healing, no matter what form, that will open your mind to the true power that we have. Leah provides a 4-step process to cleanse ourselves from toxic thoughts, habits, behaviors, and energy. And we have a pretty candid and eye-opening conversation about constipation. You're going to love it. And trust me, there's an analogy there. Also, how to shift from making or this hustle mode into creating. And Leah leaves us with this beautiful vision of what is possible for our world when we shift into creation mode. Leah is a true change maker. Let me introduce you to her. Leah Lund is the creator of One Whole Health and the Spiritual Wealth Creation Method, and an award-winning author, speaker, and host of the I Am Vibrant podcast, which I highly recommend if you are looking for ways to leave the hustle behind and achieve all your dreams with ease and flow, just like we're going to talk about today. Based on her vast experience as an energy coach and spiritual leader, her divine energy attunement solution and spiritual wealth creation method helps entrepreneurs, coaches, business professionals, healers, and visionary leaders sustain energy and focus by building greater capacity so that you can direct your own frequency, so you can hold space for your movement, your mission, or business without sacrificing your health, your personal passions, or your spiritual connection. Her Inspirement Life Planner is a weekly planner like no other that helps you breathe life back into your business and dreams. Leah helps create outer success through inner alignment with your natural divine energy. And this episode is divine, my friend. Leah so generously has gifted you with a beautiful free resource. It's called the Soul Driven Success Series. It's all about releasing hustle and creating more with greater ease. And she's also launching a new program soon called The Vibrant Women, where she's going to teach women how to master their energy to feel radiant, and be their most powerful, magnetic, and confident self. These both look so juicy and powerful, and we have included links in the show notes. So please go ahead and check them out and soak up all of her divinity. Welcome to this divine circle. Hi, Leah. Welcome to the Circle of Change.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited for this conversation. I know it's going to be really enlightening, and I'm looking forward to the great questions that you always ask. So, thank you so much for having me here.
You're welcome. I'm delighted to have you here, especially as we kick off the spring season of the podcast. I know we will likely dive into some discussion around nutrition and food. And it was actually a food journey that awakened me to the power of honoring the seasons, which then inspired me to take a seasonal approach in all that I do and including this podcast here. So that kind of has got me excited today.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Honoring seasons and recognizing them, it explains so much, doesn't it?
It
So,
does.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time ignoring all that.
hmm
I was introduced to you through a summit that you created and hosted called the New Human Summit. And your opening interview was with Gary Zukav and Linda Francis, two people that I have been mentored by and who have fundamentally shifted my world and how I show up in it. And that is actually what drew me into your summit. But once I was there, I could not leave. Like day after day, you brought these amazing people to the stage who were talking about leading from a conscious place. And it was so inspiring and so hopeful. And I knew that I wanted to connect with you and bring you here. And here you are.
Oh, thank you, Amy Leah. That whole event, first of all, was an absolute delight to host and to lead. It was delivered, like there was no question. It was actually based on a piece that I wrote in my journal back in 2017 when I was doing some transformation work and humanitarian work in Ecuador and on the Galapagos one evening. I couldn't sleep and I got up and I do as I often do, automatic handwriting, kind of channeled writing, and this piece of New Human came out. And I had no idea what it was ever for or if it was for anything. It just lived in my journal all these years since that time. And then at the start of this year, it became clear to me. I kept receiving the message that no, this is an event. And so then it became okay, it just became so much fun for me to say, who are the conscious leaders I know doing things in a conscious way, even if their work is completely different or centered around, something more spiritual like Gary and Linda, or something around health and wellness, or even something around digital marketing, and things that might not sound like they belong in a spiritual event, but the core thread was the consciousness. So to hear that I'm so appreciative that you found me there and you reached out with this invitation to be here today, but also to hear, you came in kind of with the known, which is incredible, right? Gary and Linda, like, fantastic. And that you stayed means a lot, because that means I was on track in terms of the invitations to speak at that event. So thank you for that. That means a lot.
Oh, you're so welcome. Yeah, it was so divine. The whole week was divine. Yeah. And thanks for sharing the story of how it came to creation. It feels very supportive to whoever's listening right now.
I take a breath on that, because how often do we like rush into figuring out, what is this for and what is the outcome going to be? And we have guidance delivered to us. Sometimes my clients will say, no, I don't think I hear guidance like you do. And I know each and every person listening right now, whether you believe it or not, you are receiving guidance all the time. And it might come in images or scents, smells, or handwriting like mine. The other one for me is a really embodied, like I'm already doing something. And then in hindsight, I go, oh, I guess we're doing this now. But all the biggest things in my life have been that way. So hopefully that was something many out there were waiting to hear, is that thing you don't even understand yet is your guidance.
I love it. Ugh. It's 11:11 here, by the way. That was just
Ooh,
like
it
the perfect
is.
nugget. Oh, so good. I am going to start us off. Well, we've already started. We have already begun. I'm going to continue by reading an excerpt from one of my favorite authors, Mark Nepo. It's his book, The Book of Awakening. It's a book that has fundamentally shifted and also supported me through a lot of difficult ups and downs. And this is our opportunity, if we haven't already, to really get present and ground ourselves in this space. And I invite you even to take a deep breath. And Leah, you're welcome to do this as well. Whoever's listening, feel free, if you're in a safe space, to just take that deep breath in and exhale, opening yourself up to the other nuggets you are meant to receive during this exchange. This is called the creator's cycle. Nothing escapes the creator's cycle, not plants, horses, trees, birds, or human beings, not the life of the mind, not the life of the heart, not the life of the spirit. All living things emerge, gather, spark new life, fall apart, die, and emerge in new ways. Each soul is a gust of God's breath, unfolding in the great energy that surrounds us like an ever moving stream. The goal is not to cheat death, but to live in the stream with a humility and aliveness that only an acceptance of death can release. Thin and fragrant petals do not hide from the wind. They survive to die and break ground again. Even within one life, we shred and reroot. We break, bleed, and rearrange into yet another beautiful thing that learns how to reach. Resisting this process doubles our pain. Singing our way through it, it is the source of wisdom and beauty.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Does anything come up for you with those words that you want to share?
Well, it's so always so divine, just timing on things and our conversation here of spring. The reorganization of energy is how I look at it. Is a rebirth. It's a birth and there are cycles. This poem speaks so beautifully to that. To me, that's a reorganization of the light. It's reorganization of the energy that we are. And what popped in my mind, I think it's totally, I hope I'm right on that, but something about what if we learn to celebrate endings like we celebrate beginnings?
Mm,
That's the wholeness. That's the holiness. We could do holiness with a WH if it softens it or makes it feel, different, and not to get caught in religious languaging and things like that. But that's the holiness of life. So thank you for that. That was a beautiful way to begin.
beautiful. Thanks for those words. Oh gosh. To begin, I like to start with this question and see where people take it. I think it's a beautiful question that really feels opening to me. And I sense you've done a lot of exploring in this realm. So the question is, who are you?
That's a that is the question, huh? that is a big question. That is a simple question. Both and more all wrapped up entangled in each other, probably. So I'll go in the order of what's coming to mind right here, right now, in this moment, coming off of what I just said about reorganization of light. I do see myself and you and all of us as crystallized light. We are energy or light as our creator and brought into this realm and this physical body and this realm of physicality, crystallized into a form. But that form is our body, and it's miraculous and it's wonderful. And it's the form that we're in, it's not who we are. So we're the crystallized light. We're the energy being created in likeness of creator light, who've come into physical form to experience, to feel, to expand. So who am I? I'm that. I'm crystallized light. I am an energy being. I am fortunate and grateful to be in this thing called body that is a sensory antenna, if we let it be, that can sense all of our five senses, certainly, but even beyond that, multisensory, multidimensionally. The more we open up to that, that's what the body is capable of. That's my starting point, anyway, of who I am. Is that and in oneness, in communion, in joint existence at all times with our creator. And I'm spiritually bilingual, so I might say God, I might say universe, I might say all that isness, whatever that isness that we have no way to fully comprehend. We're always in connection and always in connection with each other because at the core we're light. We're a light field. We're individual pieces of that light field. So I don't know if that was the answer you were looking for or not. And I know you, so I know you weren't even looking for. You had no expectation of the answer.
No, that was beautiful and profound, really. It is. And I appreciate your spiritual bilingualness because I know that speaking of God can really shut people down and close them off from what is possible. And when we're able to see it through whatever lens we can see it, that we can accept it, whether it's just looking at the beauty of a flower or having this deeper level of awareness like you so clearly do. There's so much potential and possibility that lies there, so thank you for that.
Words and language said were created to cover our emotion, our feeling, to give our mind something to grab onto so we were less in tune with the energy and the feelings and the emotions. And so language is beautiful and it's wonderful, and it also can cause so many problems in the world, right? I mean, we have wars over definition of a word, and it's just a word. It's simply a word. Yeah.
Well, now I'm really curious because you obviously have this deep level of consciousness in terms of who you are or what we are as beings. And have you always been this way, or like what has been your journey to here to doing the work that you get to do in the world right now? What has that been like for you?
When I was very young, when I was a young girl, I definitely had a sense that everything was energy. I wouldn't have had those words to say it, but I was in tune to impulses or nudges and I was raised on a farm, so there was a lot of animals, and there was, speaking of cycles and seasons, everything was seasonal and cyclical. And my dad would smell when it was going to rain and things like that. So I had some kind of knowing of energy from a young age, although not words to describe it. But I did feel very connected to God, and I did feel like I had vibrational impulses and nudges or knowings from God. I had those kinds of experiences with our animals often, where I could communicate with them. And that's a great example of what I was talking about language. Animals don't need the language and they can absolutely communicate. We feel them, we know. It's one of the reasons in my retreats we always have equine therapy as part of it, because the horses in particular, and I have horses myself, you can communicate with a horse and they absolutely read you, but it's not with words, it's with energy and body position and body opening. And so I grew up with that. Also being, I guess, what could be called sensitive, highly sensitive. As a young person, my mom would say I had a tender heart, but except that didn't sound like a good thing. The way she would say it, I took things too seriously. I felt things too deeply, as if there is such a thing. But I knew she was trying to protect me from heartbreak and those kinds of things. But then I left all that, going into university and graduating and going off into my career. In adulthood, I entered the corporate world, and I had a very successful corporate career in leadership development for retail organizations. And I mastered ignoring all of those energetic impulses. Like I became so detached from body and energy and, operating off little sleep and putting the worst kinds of foods and things in my body and just being all up in the head, which looked good on paper, right? It looked good from the outside or from what I was accomplishing and the sales my territories were doing and the advancement of the leaders that I was coaching and guiding. But it really put me aware to a point where I hit a wall, quite a big wall physically exhausted and disenchanted with life, thinking by 30, I was thinking, is this it? Is this all there is here? Because my role in that leadership development had also become finding problems, like finding things wrong, looking for violations of code. And I walked away from my corporate career shortly after having to terminate someone's employment for something that was so easily correctable. It was literally ridiculous in my book. But it was a real soul check for me of wait a minute. I was in this for the expansion of those that I was leading, right? For them to learn and grow and express themselves. And here I am in the most like smallest, tiniest, restrictive, constrictive acts. And I just walked away with really no plan. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I just knew I wasn't going to do that anymore. When I walked away, I thought I'd feel better immediately. And I actually felt worse. And in hindsight, I realized, no, I'm just feeling again, right? I hadn't been feeling in a long time. So it's not that I feel worse. All this has been going on, but the power of the mind to, focus and ignore, I just hadn't realized it. So I came to realize I had things going on from a health perspective. I had neurotransmitter depletion. So my brain chemistry, things like serotonin were incredibly depleted. I had adrenal fatigue. There were physical explanations for how completely burned out I felt. But I know the physical is simply a symptom of what's going on emotionally or not, what's going on energetically. And I really had separated myself from God. I had separated myself from myself. I didn't even recognize what it was to feel the things that came rushing back in that I was feeling in my body, all of which happened when I slowed down and just stepped away with no plan. And then, I went on a search. Then I went on a search of what is happening here. Is this hormone imbalance? Am I literally losing my mind? I had panic attacks over simple things. I can think back to a day of this is after I left corporate and when I was like fully feeling again. I can remember a day of just simply going into a grocery store and the lights were so bright and the sounds were so loud and it became so instantly overwhelming that I had one of those hand cart baskets. I was going to grab a few things and I just set it down, turned around, went back home and didn't even grocery shop because that felt way too stressful for me. And it was such a sharp contrast to a month before, 2 months before, whatever the timing was, where I was managing hundreds of people in their development and millions of dollars in sales revenue and, handling what would look like a lot of stress. And here I was all of a sudden just grocery shopping felt completely overwhelming. So much so that I went back home.
Oh, there's so much in there. Thank you for sharing that story. That's so fascinating. And I feel like it's not like just your story, it's a story of humanity in a lot of ways, and that we come in so connected and then are conditioned to step away from that and separate ourselves. And then for some people, there is that awakening moment again where we're allowed to and able to come back to that connection. What you said about feeling all that pain after you had stepped away from your job, and I will say that it's interesting. We share a lot of things, which is including a cancer journey, and it was an HR situation that also is what pulled me away from my job and got me into the work that I'm doing
Mm,
today. Just really sitting with that question of like, I don't think I'm meant to be doing this, like, uh, in this lifetime. Like, I think I'm here for something different.
yeah.
Yeah. But that rush of feelings coming back in, and that is the pain, like, that's a very positive way to think about that.
Well, it was you said like the point of awakening or something to that degree. I forget exactly what it was you said, but like that moment of awakening. That darkness, that really like pretty yucky, horrible feeling of how I felt, that was the awakening. Did I know that then? No. But maybe. Like deep inside, I knew something was changing in a really big way. I won't even pretend for a moment that I was completely accepting of that and like, oh, okay, this is a wonderful thing because a big change is on the way. No, nowhere near that. But I did have some inkling inside that something had to give. And would it have been wonderful if I would have realized that a little sooner and orchestrated a little more smoothly and all of that kind of thing? Yeah, but it didn't work that way, and that's okay. Like it literally is one of the best things that's happened in my life because I did start to go on a journey of figuring out what was it that I was experiencing, what was happening in my body, who am I again? And the study and the journey, I was pretty aimless for probably 6 years, but the study and the journey, I would never trade that for the world. I would never trade that for anything because it really it weaved back and forth between the absolute integration and connection that is always there between spirit and body. So some things looked more health oriented or like a health breakdown, but they were at the same time the way to return to wholeness in the physical body, and the health was absolutely completely tied and enmeshed with spiritual expansion. So the two unfolded together. I know that couldn't have been any other way.
Yeah. I can just so relate to that. I was just speaking with my coach this morning about this journey, and it's like, what has my journey been? And I had that realization that, yeah, for me too, it was like a 6 or 7 year journey. It wasn't just like, ooh, I had the epiphany and then I headed in one direction. No. It was like I actually went down from there and then up and then down and then up, if that's how we want to envision it. But really, I love the way you worded it in terms of like what I picked up is like every moment was perfect.
It really was. Yeah, and I want to say for anybody listening out there that's in a career that they don't feel is aligned, I was single at the time. I didn't have children or anything. So for me to just walk away with no plan might have felt a little bit more feasible than if you are a parent and you have a family and you have somebody depending on you financially and all of that kind of thing. What I see now is I could have, if I would have known what I know now, I could have had this epiphany and this healing in that job. I really could have. The exact situation I spoke of that kind of put me over the edge, I would never be okay with that situation, so I'm not talking about that. But in the greater scope of things, when I looked back, there were peers that I could look back and say, you know what, they were fully embodying themselves. The job did not require me to detach from my body and detach and separate myself from God. That's how I responded, but I could also see examples of people that now I know why they seem to feel so differently than I did in the role. It wasn't the role. It was the capacity that I didn't have it at the time that I then built, that if I would have had it in that scenario, it would have played out completely different, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah. And we're all on our own journey. It's like you probably really couldn't have had it any other way because
For
this was
me, for me
for
personally,
you.
yeah,
Exactly.
individually, yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. But it's nice to have that reflection too and see your world differently, which is speaks a lot to when we change within, we can also see things very differently around us. I want to transition into spring and what that means, but also I know so much of your work is around wellness, and you have this company, One Whole Health, that you've created, and it's multifaceted from what I can tell. But you speak to a process of detoxification, and I know spring, that is one of the themes, is that time of year where we can detoxify And so I would just love to hear your thoughts, your perspectives on this season and this process of detoxification. Like for you, what does that mean?
When I think of spring, when I just hear that word, two things come to mind. One, I am transcended back to the upbringing on the farm. Like spring was a definite feel, right? First of all, this was in the upper US near Canada in North Dakota. So spring was like the salvation. It was like, oh, thank
Yeah.
goodness spring is here.
Yes.
And I'm sure many around the world can relate to that. But spring also had this duality of flowers popping up through snow. Some of the snow was still there, the old of the winter that we were, wishing to go away faster. But also the flowers and the buds were coming through at the same time. So it's kind of this duality of a rebirth. That really is the second thing that comes to my mind when you say spring is rebirth. So it's energy reorganizing itself. We use a word death, but it's not really death. The opposite of life isn't death. The opposite of death is birth. So there's birth and there's death of a form of the energy, but the energy itself doesn't die. And so the energy is simply reorganized. And so spring is a time of reorganization. It's a time of energy changing form. And yes, that might be goodbye to some things and it's hello to others and it's a rebirth, but it's an exchange of consciousness more than it's really a death. It's a hello and a goodbye at the same time. And detoxification is the description really of the letting go of the pieces that we are letting go of or could think of as allowing to shift. I can go into so many different levels on detoxification because sure there's detoxification of our body. Spring is a great time seasonally to do any kind of detox or cleanse or fast for the physical body. Anytime we do those, that intertwined body and spirit comes into play because anytime we do even a physical detox or a physical fast, things like that, we detox energy on so many levels. And we feel it in our emotions. That's why we can feel really tired or even cranky or, a whole headaches or a whole host of physical symptoms when we're detoxing the body physically. It's because it is a release and reorganization of energy.
I have never heard it expressed as such, this reorganization of energy, even death in that way. It's so opening and refreshing way to think about it. I do love how you have the language that you choose to use is very positive centered, like it's high vibrational, which has an impact in and of itself, I think.
It does. And I'm just going to say this since it came up, and I'm not trying to take us off track of detoxification at all, but you and I sharing a health journey recently. So, more recently than the other physical things I went through when I left my career of adrenal fatigue and all that, more recently, there has been a bump, and that's the word I choose a bump in my breast. And from day I was gonna say day 1, but to be more honest, day 5. By
Yeah.
day it wasn't day 1 with the diagnosis, but by day 5, I really saw it as a symptom of the energy that needed to be moved, and I used the word detoxification all the time about it. What's going on? Somebody would say to me, "Oh, you're trying to cure your cancer," or something like that, and I would say, "Oh, you have me mistaken for someone else. I am detoxing a bump in my breast. I am releasing and reorganizing this energy. I am detoxing a bump." I personally, and this is not a prescription for anyone else, everybody's journey is unique and there are lots of factors. But for myself personally, up until this point, I've not done any radiation or chemo or even surgery. I have been detoxing a bump for over 2 years now, and it is now getting really difficult to find. I'll put it that way. It's definitely, as of the last imaging, 10% of what it once was. But even since that imaging, it's getting more and more. reduced. And I see it that way. I see it as energy I'm releasing, in particular, resistance. From early on, I said, oh, my body is amazing in that it has gathered up all my resistance in this hard nugget. And now I get to melt all that resistance and detox it and release it.
I love that. Yeah. Again, just positive, full of potential versus the energy of fighting, the fight against cancer, all of that. That doesn't feel to me like an opportunity versus what you've just shared, which is I get to, I get
Yeah,
to
it's laws of
move.
it. It's,
Yeah.
I get to. I get to move this energy. Laws of energy are scientific. And if we look back in the most ancient of spiritual texts, there are references to the exact same ways that energy works. But we can think of it that there's really an open, you mentioned openness, and open and closed switch of energy. And closed is the resistance, closed is the fighting against, closed is being against things of any kind. And healing doesn't happen in that closed state. Healing is the open state. Healing is the processing. Detoxification, really, it's a digestion of life. So anytime I feel a toxic buildup of any kind, it might be a toxic mood, toxic thought. I can't seem to get out of my head, an actual feeling of sluggishness in my body, or noticing it in my bowel movement or whatever it is. More in tune we are with our body, we start to see when there's a toxic buildup. And what is required is another way to look at that detoxification is digestion. It's an energy circulation. So it's what can I let go of and what can I bring in? And not necessarily in that order. What can I bring in? What can I let go of? It's a circle. And so a question I'll ask my clients when they're experiencing something like that is, what are you not digesting right now? Well, if we're not digesting something, we're not letting it go. We're not accepting it. We're not bringing it into our awareness often enough to chew on it and break it down and unravel and see what it is. We're letting something be this agitation. And an illustration that helps for understanding is, think of it like food in your digestive system that you're not processing. Is that going to be long term easy for the body, open for the body, flowing, all of that? No. And yet we know in health and wellness, undigested food, we don't want that in the body a long time. We don't want undigested emotion. We don't want undigested thoughts. We don't want undigested conversations with people, arguments, conflict. Detoxification is jump starting energy circulation again, which could be thought of as fully digesting life, accepting life as is, bringing it in, processing, and release. Allow, bring it in, process, release, repeat, 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 repeat. Then that's really self regulating, right? That's self regulating, that's self mastery.
Yeah. So it's not going to happen overnight. It's a process, it's a journey. And yeah, I'm so appreciative of this discussion. And it, for someone that for most of my life has suffered from, who has experienced constipation, and that was huge during my cancer journey and all the medications I was on. And that just was exacerbated like 100-fold. And today, maybe TMI for the listener, but I don't have that issue anymore. Like it's not a thing. And I didn't think about it in this way. And I really love that, because when I look back, I can see there was lots that was undigested. And so it's really cool to see it now that it's physically manifested in so many
Yeah.
different ways. Woo.
Somehow I always end up in this conversation about constipation. But it's true. Like, it is energetic constipation. All the stuff we haven't dealt with, that the feelings we haven't allowed ourselves to feel, the conversations we haven't had with people in our life, the forgiveness we haven't done yet. All of that is energetic constipation. And all healing feels like a release. It does. That's the surrender word. That's why we have healing crisis, and we use that word crisis, but it's really kind of pushed to the brink of everything that you've been holding on to now just has to come out. There's no other way. There has to be a release, and it always feels so good. and
So
and
true.
I find it really fascinating that in equine therapy with the horses that I mentioned, when they are done doing their healing work, they always go to the bathroom. Like there is out they go back on to their area on themselves and release every single
Oh my
time.
gosh. I love
They
it.
inherently know how to do it.
I'm gonna have new conversations in the bathroom now, in public
Exactly.
stalls. Be like, yes, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Oh, so good. I'm curious. So, sort of the last topic area I want to dive in with you on is the difference between creating and making, which I know you focus quite a lot on and you support people in that. And we're talking about all this resistance. Is this related somehow to this process, this journey that we're talking about now? And how do we shift out of the making mode into the creating mode, if that's a way to word it?
Yeah, it is related because it is both things that we've talked about, detoxification of a physical body and now going into creating versus making, are opportunities for energy management. And at the core, that's really what I support people with is energy management. And I don't mean how do I get myself over caffeinated, bouncing off the walls so that I can do 50 billion more things. That's not what I mean by energy management. It's energy management of your internal vibration and allowing flow. How do you allow in flow? Again, it's the opening. It's being open. It's ease. And so I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and really soul driven people that do have a burning passion and purpose to serve in the world, but who are getting caught up with what I call the hustle, staying in the head about things and having this faulty programmed, most of us, myself certainly included, have had it where it's like in order to be successful, if I use that word, then I have to push and push and push and do more and more and more and work more hours and work harder. And that is tightening down energy. All of that kind of thinking, all of that way of scheduling your day, all of that way of operating in your business or your nonprofit, or if you're in healing arts or whatever you're doing, it's hustle and it's push and it's pinching off the energy flow that is your natural innate essence. And so making mode is that closed off position. It is going through the motions of putting something out into the world, you writing your book, whatever it is. It could be even just parenting, having a child, that's a creation. That's a major creation. But when you're going about it in making mode, your energy is so pinched off. You have a grip on life. You're probably looking to force outcomes. Everything that you do, even though this might be subconscious, is everything that you're doing tied to a certain outcome, a certain performance, approval, a sense of security. In a sense, you are putting your energy towards something, but with an ulterior motive. And it might be very, very subconscious because this is the language of our society, right? Is all about performance and achievement and ranking and awards. But that preoccupation with the future, how things are going to turn out, it's hiding the true energetic self that you are. It is a way of taking the energy and the life force that we are and sort of twisting it and conforming it to an image that we think we have to maintain. Other traits would be real critical evaluation of outcomes of yourself and of others. Anytime somebody's critical toward somebody else, I always like, if somebody is critical toward me about something, I have such compassion because I know the critical thoughts that are directed inward are 10 times worse. Like I know what's going on in the inside is far more critical than what's coming at me. And lastly, when we're in making mode, we're attaching meaning to things. We're making it mean. So this is an exaggeration in a way, but really not, because it is what's probably going on in the subconscious mind, but it will sound harsh in a way. But if my business is successful, I'm worthy. That's a making mode versus realizing you were worthy from the day you were born. You were designed worthy. And it has nothing to do with the external 3D creations that you're putting forth. You are here to create 3D things, but it has nothing to do with who you are and your worthiness. So that's creation. Creation is when you're detached from the outcome, not assigning meaning to things. You're creating more and more and more and more, and again and again and again and again, simply as expansion of yourself, simply as an expression of God. Simply because I kind of come full circle to where, when you asked who I am, when I'm using my energy to create things in physical form, simply as a way to honor and give glory to the creator itself. I'm extending the energy of the creator. I'm a conduit for that light to come through me. And it's almost like a magic wand, right? Like zap, that over there and that over there, all expressions of praise for the creator, not personal, doesn't really even have to do with me. I'm grateful that I'm in it and I'm getting to be the channel that it came through. It's fun, but I would feel satisfied no matter the outcome because I'm fulfilling my purpose, which is extending the creator's magnificence.
That's beautiful. What's your vision? What does our world look like when we are all in creation mode?
When we're all in creation mode, our world looks peaceful, our world looks loving. There is an innate oneness that we all see. We don't get caught up on the 1% of us that's different from each other. We realize we are beautiful expressions, individual, very unique. I mean, one thing that I say that is, I don't know that people always get it when I say it. And I think when it starts to sink in, there's resistance to this concept, but I say that I'm non-boxary. And that's a little play on words of, while it's wonderful, we are embracing all the variety of how people see themselves. To me, that's not far enough in our world. It's a great start. It's a wonderful start from a binary vision, but truly we are non-boxary. There are not, we would either need 8 billion boxes to describe our absolute unique fingerprint. For example, our fingerprint is completely unique, or we need one box.
Humanity? Or yeah, what would you
Divine,
call
yeah,
that box? Yeah.
humanity or divine energy in crystallized form, or, little waves of light of the field. There's lots of ways to describe it, but that's what the world will look like when we're done with all this division, divisive language and view. And beyond that, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what that is. We might evaporate into, it's just a field of light. I don't know. There's no way to know. but I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. This has been such an enlightening conversation. I can feel the energy flowing, and I could really feel your energy flowing in this last piece around creating. Creating. That just feels like that's your jam. That's what you are here to create with others. And so grateful that you were able to come here today and join us and share that energy with us. I want to end on one more question, and it's the question I ask everybody as we close. Ultimately, this podcast is about helping people to quote unquote be the change in the world. And I think that means really different things to different people. And I'm curious, what does that mean to you to be the change?
To be the change to me means embodying everything that I just shared, embodying that inclusive, unified love, unity consciousness, love consciousness that is the divine, that is the higher power creator. When I am that inside, I'm the change. When I'm that, and we're fluid, we're energy. We get there and then we don't, right? It is that we remember and then we forget. That happens. That happens for everyone. But when I'm in that moment, that pure moment, my energy being aligned that way internally, I am the change. And the more of us that get there, the more often, that's where the change ripples out to the whole world.
Beautiful words to end on. Thank you so much, Leah, for coming here and sharing your story with us, your energy, your passion, and for really creating with us today. So
It
grateful.
has been incredible. It's been so much fun and really powerful questions that you asked. So I thank you so much for creating the space for a conversation like this.
I'm now passing the talking piece to you. If you feel called to put your voice in the circle, please head to humconsulting.ca/podcast and share your story there. I cannot wait to hear what has come up for you as you have listened to what has been shared here today. I wish you love and joy beyond your wildest imagination. Thank you so much for being here in the Circle of Change. I also want to express my gratitude to the following peeps. Circle of Change is recorded on Lekwungen territories, and I am so grateful to live on this land. Our opening and closing music was created by the talented E-Roll Beats. You can find his creations at erollbeats.com. And special thanks to my coach, Mary Chan of Organized Sound Productions, for bringing this podcast to life. Until next time, ciao.